Most customers just want to know, and most customers are happy and understand about things that happen. Whether it be weather or something didn't show up, they just don't want to be guessing what's going on. And if you could communicate, whether you or your people or whoever, however you're set up, communicate with that customer and let them know what's happening, and they'll be very happy. Hey everyone, Chris G here. Welcome to a Hard Hat to CEO. And today is something new. You're usually listening to somebody else, but I decided you're going to listen to me today. At least I hope you do. And to help me out, I've got my producer here, Kevin. Kevin's going to help me walk through this. I thought a little odd just talking to myself since you are listening and not with me in the room, nor do I have any other guests. So here we go. A Hard Hat CEO, episode solo number one. But as you've been listening, I appreciate you listening to Titan's Tale. And as you know, we made the switch over. This is the first of January. So here we go. Kevin, thank you for joining me today.
Of course. I'm excited. I'm always excited to do these types of episodes because they are different, and different is good.
That's right.
Different is
Stretching myself
good.
I tell other people to do. So
yes,
sometimes I got to stretch too, right?
Yeah. Well, you can't be a hypocrite. You're not a hypocrite. You're someone who practices what you preach, and that's what we're going to do today. So I have a question for you to get this started.
All right.
What is the number one lesson you know today that would have saved you the most amount of pain early on as a contractor?
Delegate.
Okay.
You need to learn to delegate, but it saved me a lot of time, saved me a lot of effort. And that's kind of hard to do, to turn loose, but I've actually done it. Uh, I didn't do it until like 5 years ago, and I was telling somebody the other day, I almost died because I had to. And that's probably what caused me. I laying in bed at the hospital, and my wife, she didn't know what was going on. I had all these businesses. I had them up in my head, and I had to delegate. And I realized that if I hadn't survived, she'd have been dealing with a lot. So today, I've got bookkeepers, and I got virtual assistants. I have coaches like you, and I have producers, obviously. I have other people I employ through my construction business and my real estate. So I don't know if you knew, I had a stint put in this year. And the family got together, my daughters and son-in-laws and my wife. We sat down about a week before it, and they said, we're not going to go through this again like we did when you were in a coma. And I said, no, no. And it was like a 5-minute meeting. Here's contact them for this, and everybody knows what's going on. And it was sweet. And less stressful, to be honest with you.
I can imagine. I can
I
imagine.
knew it was all in good hands. It didn't matter. And it's going to continue to go, and cash flow is going to continue to come. That's important just from, a security point of view. Your business aren't going to go fail that you're not there.
So speaking of cash flow, how do you know? Because I can imagine, and as somebody who has delegated a lot and built a large team at this point, I know it had to cross a certain threshold before it made sense to delegate. So how do you know in your business, specifically as a contractor or a service provider in general, how do you know when it's time to delegate?
Well, you got to have a little extra cash, and sometimes you're bootstrapping. You almost got to do it yourself. That's a given. But if you can build in some pricing, in contracting, construction contracting, that is, it makes it a little bit simpler because I know what the market will bear, and I've got lower overhead, and we know kind of where we're at. So it's easy to build those costs in. From a online business, I always thought that you had to have low overhead anyway. So I went the virtual assistant route, and it makes it easier on paperwork and so forth. But you got to have income, and you got to be able to budget. And really, budgeting is really the key to the cash flow thing, figuring out where you're at so you can look at it and say, okay, well, what would I need to happen to make me afford? Make yourself a goal. If you're wanting to free your time up, set a goal. I got to have X amount. And if you feel that that's necessary, and I would say this too, Kevin, that set that goal for 3 months, because you might be able to hit that goal 1 month, and then you're still a little nervous, and you go jump ship and you go hire somebody. And I sure don't. I've been through several layoffs where I had to do layoffs, and I hate layoffs. So know in your mind that you've got a good system in place that you can pay for that person. That person can be feel that confident that they're going to have a good job with you, and then they'll become part of that team. Um, I tell my virtual assistants I hate layoffs because those people didn't do anything.
Mm.
It's a business decision, yes, but and it has to happen to survive. But they are no fun. I can fire somebody all day long because they done messed up or don't care or whatever. But them that layoff stuff ain't worth a damn.
Yeah. How do you so say somebody is in a position right now where they're saying, all right, cool, I have good cash flow. I set my goal for the last 3 months. I hit the goal 3 months in a row. Where do they start? How do we know where we're starting to delegate?
Well, identify, and you probably start this when you first get your goals because your goal obviously is not only financial, but what are you going to get from that person, and what are you going to get from hiring, or even we talk about software. What are you going to get from that software? Is it going to save your time? What are things that you hate to do? And I say hate, you're not very good at maybe. Um, I can do a lot of things, but just because I can don't mean I should.
Mm.
So that's the same with you. Find the things you're good at. Hopefully it's sales and generate in running your business, and turn those other things over to people who are. Um, Sometimes you're not the salesman. And if you're not the salesperson, you know it, then hire a good salesman. Well, I've got a virtual assistant company that we have, and I turn the sales over to Amy. She does all that, you know. Um, my son-in-law, I'm training in my company. No, and there's times I got to teach him how to do things, but that's okay. He's willing to learn. So, through time, well, training time and trust, you can really get a good team under you.
Mm.
But first identify what you're good at, what you like, and find the things that you don't or need help with and turn those over. It might be bookkeeping. And sometimes bookkeeping is easiest. You know why? Because that could be a part-time position and don't require as much money.
Okay.
That might be a
How
good solution. That's a lot of paperwork.
yeah, yeah, understandable. How do you know what's the in your head,
Hmm.
what is the equation for figuring out whether or not the delegation is working the way it's supposed to? Other than bottom line, right? Because there's got to be some
Right.
other indicators that you're looking at.
Time. Is your time free? A freer, put it that way. Um, are you putting your time to something that's more beneficial to the company and your business, or aiming your family if that's one of your goals? But
Mm.
is your time being freed up? And some extent, maybe even stress. Um, I've gotten stressed before where I got too many things on my plate to get done. I had to prioritize. So by turning things that I'm not as good with or don't enjoy, it not only it builds me up and speeds me up, but it actually you get more done because you enjoy doing things. You're not putting things off. You're doing the things you enjoy. And if you're hiring the right person or delegating to the right people, then they're going to get it done more faster than you were anyway because
Mm.
they enjoy that stuff as well.
When I think a lot oftentimes when people hear delegation, they hear hire.
Not necessarily. It can be.
What
My
are some
bookkeepers, well,
yeah,
bookkeepers are a perfect example. They're not employed by me. Technically, I am their client, and they take care of my books and my accounting. Um, Podcasting. If you're a podcaster, a business coach, and you have virtual assistants, and turn over the editing. I was talking to somebody the other day. Well, I'm doing a podcast too. I said, okay, well, how you doing? And they're doing well. But it says a lot of hard work, and it is. Don't get me wrong. That is not what I mean. But they said, well, how do you do that? And I said, well, I turn the video editing and all the other copy over to somebody else because it would be terrible to be able to have to record. You get all your people, and then you make it right. And it's something I don't do very well. And at the end of the day, it saves me a lot of time and effort. Yes, it costs, but if you want to be consistent, and that's probably one of the first things you learn from being a podcaster and growing your podcast is being consistent. So I've got too many irons in the fire. I got a lot of different things, and I know that if I tried doing it myself, it wouldn't happen.
mm,
Even they asked me to do videos today for some other stuff, and I have a tendency to put it off because I got to make decisions. So it doesn't have to be Doesn't have to be someone online or somebody in person hiring. It doesn't have to be. It could be a virtual assistant. It doesn't have to be full time or part time. It could be part time too. It really depends on what you're looking for and what makes sense to you. Um,
Mm. What about software and stuff? Because you did say at one point you're delegating with software too.
yeah, software is a neat thing. There's other lots of softwares out there. I'll get a little plug for Prospect HQ, but um, you can automate things that your billing, your the social media. You can program or put in a calendar and do your social media one time a month, and it'll do it for the whole month, or actually the whole year, as long as the calendar goes. If you got enough that content,
Mm.
and those are things that maybe it costs you $200 a month in subscriptions, but the software out there today can do lots of things, even to the extent of making appointments. It can. With AI, it's scary, man. You can talk to somebody and you think you're talking to, and I'm not even talking about robotics anymore. Sometimes you'll be able to tell. There's such good AI out there today that it's hard to tell if it's a real person or not,
Mm.
and it's amazing. But that's well, I know Prospect HQ, for example, you got 200. It's only $100 extra from a person for an AI employee, as they call it. So there's a lot of different things out there that really work. Um, Workflows, the redundancy. That's another thing when you're setting your goals, and maybe a person's not the right fit at this point. You can also set up management or reputation management within your software, and what's that? That's basically asking for a referral and asking for a rating, and everything's automatic and gets put into Google. Facebook has that same thing. You can put that rating on Facebook. It's all done once you set it up and it's done, and you forget about it. Other
Okay.
than bill, as long as you're billing, then that workflow just go right on through, and you get some stars, and you get. I tell them we want to light that Google up like the night sky. So all kinds of stars.
Okay. All right. Let's jump a little bit. So
All
that's
right.
something that you wish you knew when you
Uh-huh.
started. Looking back, what is something that you did in the very beginning where now you realize, well, I kind of been doing that this whole time, and that's something that has made a huge difference? Like, what is maybe a skill set, maybe something you were good at the beginning?
Budgeting. But I've been I've got some accounting background in me, and that's a good thing. I like numbers, and not everybody does, but I don't like them enough to be an accountant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love talking business. I love talking numbers. But I don't want to sit down and do the math. But I'm always calculating, what's the profit? What's the cash flow? Where are we at? Um, I love playing with what ifs and putting in scenarios and changing the percentages. If I could do this, what happens? What happens here? And that's a lot of fun. And I find it fun. Some people probably wouldn't, but um,
How important is, I don't want to say liking numbers, but how important is it to accept numbers and be willing to dive into numbers?
I would say it's very important to an extent. And here's what I mean. You got to be able to look at what they call key performance indicators. Look at your KPIs. That's what KPIs stand for. And be able to recognize that, oh, this needs to be at 10%, and oh, it's at 8%. Why am I at 8%? Identifying that 8 and figuring out how to get it to 10. Or if it's above, that's even better, understanding what those percentages, what those key numbers are telling you. And that's probably the most extent. And you can sit down with somebody who loves numbers and help you establish those key performance indicators.
Hmm.
But break that habit of looking at them and then identifying what can affect them. And if they're not performing the way they need to, um, at first you probably have to be the person to doing it because you don't have a lot of people. But make them change. Figure out what it is. For contractors, if your cost of goods sold, meaning your inventory is high or you've got material should be less, sometimes you might have to shop for something to get that number where you want it to be. Your hours uh, per building, or however you want to look at it, how much your labor hours are per your dollar amount that you're bringing in. Is it the type of job you're doing, or is it the fact that your labor is not doing what it's supposed to for that job? there's a lot of different things to look at, but
Mm.
identify those key performance indicators and look at them from a number point of view. And that's probably the extent of the numbers you have to have. And that's a real quick, sometimes they call it a dashboard. You can look at your dashboard and look at if it's redlining, then you know you're in bad shape. If you don't like numbers, look at dials and graphs and so forth. So
What do you think an attribute of a successful contractor is? Like organization, prudence, consistency.
communication.
Okay. Tell us why.
Let's start from the customer's point of view. Most customers just want to know, and most customers are happy and understand about things that happen. Whether it be weather or something didn't show up, they just don't want to be guessing what's going on. And if you could communicate, whether you or your people or whoever, however you're set up, communicate with that customer and let them know what's happening, and they'll be very happy. Now, that's not to say that they won't. You got a week job, it's going to take 4 weeks. That's not what I'm saying. But if you get a delay or something's going on, communicate. That's the best thing. Also, that can go back to your employees as well. They they just want to know. And when I found if you just tell them, and you don't have to get into detail about it, but just give them the big picture. Say, hey, here's why we're doing this. Um, and sometimes that's better because I like talking about the grapevine. Uh, I was told one time that you start rumors. Yeah, I do. Good rumors. And I don't mean rumors, but if you go to the person who's your root of your grapevine and you communicate with them, usually it's bad news. But I like going with them good news. You go with them with good news, and it's going to spread just as fast as that bad news. And people understand and get a feeling for it, and they feel part of the team too. Hey, this is why we're doing this, or this makes sense. And communication goes both ways. If you have a good team who communicates, they're going to tell you what they think too. And there's times that I learned a lot from my team that I never really thought about it that way. And you got to be willing to accept that, make changes. Don't be so hard headed that. But I always tell people, be right until I prove you wrong, meaning that you tell me why you think you're right, and you might change my mind, which is good. It needs to be changed if it's right.
Mm.
And that's the same way. So communication goes a lot of different ways. But from the customer side and from the internal side.
How do you know if you're doing a great job communicating with clients? What are the tells?
You'll get a thank you or you'll hear a no problem, meaning they understand. Um, Sometimes you'll say, well, I've worked with so many other contractors. You're different. I've been told that. It's like, y'all do things differently. And I was like, I like to think so because this is well before years ago. Um, I was building duplex and so forth. I wasn't building, I was having them built for me. And nobody call or you you have friends and they talk about building their house and nobody shows up. And my dad was a banker and I'd hear those horror stories of people coming in and getting, let's say, mistreated by their contractors or not even know the answer. The banks want to know answers too. And the banks will ask the homeowner or the person building it and they don't know the answer. So they get stressed for things that aren't necessary. So smiles actually. People answer the phone or you answer the phone or somebody answers the phone. It doesn't have to be you, but somebody. A lot of times they get frustrated when they dial and nobody answers. Yeah, think about yourself. It doesn't have to be building a house or anything. Doesn't it frustrate you when you call somebody and at least don't get a call back?
Of course.
That just treat people like you want to be treated, and that goes with any business, contracting. Just treat them like you want to be treated, and you can go a long, long ways. I'm telling you.
All right, last question before we get out of here for this initial episode. What are you doing to ensure that you are improving as you go? Like you said, it's very easy to get stuck on your systems and say, well, this is the way we've always done it. What are you doing to make sure that you're bringing new stuff in?
I am a business coach and I hire business coaches. And there are a list of things that we try to create in habits. And sometimes those habits change based on where you're at. But identifying the things that you need to do daily and making those happen. Um, you can work just to be working, or you can actually work and focus on a goal that you have to have that know you're moving forward. So I have a chart. Well, I don't have a chart. I was given a chart by my coach. I follow those, and things will start happening, and you'll start feeling that momentum. And it's not easy at first, but once it becomes a habit, then you are always thinking, your mind's thinking that, hey, what do you got to do today? And I'm not talking about a lot of things. There's about top five maybe, um, things that I have to do to move forward in my businesses, and identifying which ones are most important. And now there are things that need to happen, and if you can, delegate them. Like I know that we have to be on social media every day. I'm not doing the social media, but I do mark it off my list that it's being done, and I've delegated it knowing that it has been done. So,
Okay. Right on. All right. Well, I'll let you do the outro because you're the big boss man. But I
all right. Well, before
appreciate.
I go, there's one last thing I want to say, and we're talking about people and customers and so forth, and that if you have a customer who doesn't understand and you're being honest with them, then they don't need to be your customer. That same goes with your employees. If they don't want to be a team player, there's other people out there. Make the switch. It's hard sometimes, but get that right person on your team. And that being said, this is my first episode being, I guess, somewhat solo. You just listen to me answer questions, which is great. I enjoy. Thank you, Kevin, for being here.
Of course.
If you need us, actually always go to Hard Hat the CEO on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can get all kinds of different things there. Plus, you can actually set up and get a chance to talk with me if you'd like. You all have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you next week. Bye bye.